Yes, people, welcome back to the channel. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about your post-fight dieting phase. The reality is that you are going to put some weight on after your fight, but it's about how much weight you put on and what your diet actually looks like in this phase. Because it is completely natural to put some weight on. It's part of our body's physiology. It is an evolutionary survival mechanism. So what I think is good to understand is exactly why fighters gain weight after their fight. After an intense training camp where it's not uncommon for people to lose 8 to 10% of their body weight via fat stores in the lead up to fight week, which is a considerable amount of weight in a really short space of time. To get there, most fighters go through severe calorie restriction. So they put themselves in severe calorie deficits in order to achieve this significant amount of fat loss. This doesn't only impact your physiology, but it also impacts your psychology around food as well. You've gone through a fight camp, 8 to 12 weeks. You're missing out on social events, birthdays, family meals out. And then once the fight's over, it's for most fighters party time. They get to indulge, they get to enjoy their diet, eat foods that they've been missing out on, which is to be expected. But where the issue lies is when fighters go through this phase, they let it go on for weeks on end. So a couple days binging after a fight leads to weeks or months. And then what happens is this rapid weight regain. If you do go through this phase for weeks on end, just kind of eating what you want when you want, then you're going to end up exactly where you started your last fight camp, or potentially worse off. So what is actually happening? Why are fighters able to gain such huge amounts of weight in such short periods of time? Essentially, after a dieting phase, your body is primed to store fat. Like I said before, it's a little bit of an evolutionary response. Your body wants to gain fat back so that it has some energy stores that it could tap into when it needs to, when food is scarce. But as the world we live in today, food is never scarce, but this survival and evolutionary mechanism still remains within our bodies. This happens through two key mechanisms. The first mechanism is post-dieting, post-fight hyperphagia. Hyperphagia can be described as an intense hunger without the feeling or sensation of feeling full. This is a recipe for weight gain. So a lot of fighters, they do report this. They just don't feel full after a fight camp. And they don't get that switch in their brain that tells them to stop eating or that they're full. And obviously, if this is the case, then these fighters are just going to keep eating, not feel full, feel hungry all the time, and therefore gain weight. And the second mechanism as to why this happens is called fat overshooting. Essentially, after a dieting phase, your body will prioritize fat storage over muscle because it sees fat stores as a more essential reserve compared to, say, muscle mass. And this means that most fighters will gain more fat after a dieting phase if it's not well controlled compared to what they lost during the dieting phase. So they'll start their next camp with a higher body fat percentage and higher weight and more weight to lose in their next fight camp. And you can almost see the weight cycling happening and how it's so hard once you're stuck in this cycle to get out of it. So their body weights are going to start here in their first camp. They'll lose a load of weight, maybe come here. And then their post-fight phase isn't well controlled. And then they end up in their next camp with a higher body fat percentage or carrying more body fat, higher body weight than where they were at the start of the first camp. They're still in the same weight class. So again, they have to go back down, lose even more. And the harsher and the more aggressive the calorie deficit is, the more intense the hunger is going to be after their fight camp, so that they end up higher again, have to lose more weight, higher again, have to lose more weight. So it's a vicious cycle to get out of, and I'm going to come on to a few tips in a minute of how, if you are stuck in this, how to potentially get out of this cycle. In terms of the effects of yo-yo dieting, weight cycling, it can have a massive impact on your health. You increase your risk of a range of cardiometabolic diseases, including cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes. Aggressive dieting throughout fight camp can also put you at risk of low energy availability, which will impact your bone health, can cause hormonal imbalances, increase your risk of injuries, impair menstrual function in female combat sport athletes, and it can also lead to more extreme weight cuts on fight week. So the higher body weight you are, you're more than likely going to have to do quite a big weight cut during fight week, which again carries its own risks, such as heat stroke, heat exhaustion, and hyponatremia. And this is just scratching the surface of the potential damage that weight cycling over the course of your career can have on your long-term health. You have to remember that to be a good fighter, you have to be a healthy fighter. If you're not a healthy fighter, then the chances are you're probably never going to reach your full potential, because your health is the most important thing that is going to dictate your performance. So how can you actually break this cycle? If you're constantly in this cycle and have been in this cycle for years, where you have to lose a load of weight each camp, you end up putting a load of weight back on, and you've been doing that for multiple fights in a row, it's going to take its toll. More than likely, your performance will be suffering. So if you're able to, what I always suggest is to maybe take a little bit of time out from fighting, because like I keep saying, your health is your main priority. If you do have the opportunity to have a few months out of fighting, then what I would say is to go through a gradual weight loss phase where you're not putting too much pressure on your body and yourself to lose large amounts of weight per week. And you can also do this whilst implementing sustainable and healthy eating patterns that are going to serve a good purpose for you long term. And then once you reach a manageable weight, what you can then do is implement reverse dieting to help you maintain that new weight long term. Then when you enter and you're ready to start fighting again, you're not going to have to lose large amounts of weight per week, so you can spend your fight camp on higher calories, dieting better, and then once this post-fight phase comes, the extreme hunger won't be there. You can also set yourself realistic weight targets outside of fight camp. A simple and effective rule for most athletes would to try and be no more than 15% above your fight weight outside of fight camp. So let's take this as an example. You've got a 70 kilogram athlete, 15% above 70 for this athlete to maintain outside of fight camp would be around 80 to 81 kilos. What would happen with this fighter in an 8-week camp is to lose around 1% of their body weight per week, put them about 7 to 8% above their fight weight 1 week out, which is a sensible amount of weight to cut and a sensible amount of weight and fat to lose during fight camp. This makes the weight cut and the weight descent easier, healthier, and less stressful. Ultimately, you'll be able to maintain your performance during fight camp as well. Another strategy and another thing to think about during the post-fight phase is to try and transition back to healthy eating patterns as soon as you can. I do always say to fighters that I work with long term, after a fight, go and enjoy yourself, have a meal out with the family, eat some foods that you've been missing. Don't let that last for more than a week. If you let that last for more than a week, it's going to be really hard to start implementing your healthy eating patterns that you've been incorporating during your fight camp if you've been doing things properly. But if you let this phase carry on for weeks on end, then it's not only going to impact your health, but also your psychological health as well. Because I've never spoke to a fighter who enjoys these long binges after a fight doesn't make any fighter feel good. And if anything, it's going to negatively impact your psychological health. So set a limit, 5 to 7 days maximum after your fight. And then after this, start to get some structure back into your diet. So it could be 4 meals a day, 4 serves of protein a day, making sure you're getting 5 to 7 serves of vegetables in, meeting your hydration targets. Keeping that structure throughout your day is going to be key to managing your satiety, and then you still have room for a couple snacks a day that you like, the meal out on the weekend, and just kind of get back to a normal eating pattern. These small steps, you're probably watching it thinking, okay, that's meaningless, hitting those targets, but that's the main spine and the main bulk of your diet, which is going to help you maintain your weight long term and setting you up for long-term success over the course of your career. It's a very challenging time after your fight, but if you think about these strategies, try and implement these strategies, then it's going to be really good for you long term, and you'll have a nice, healthy, long career.